Arkham Asylum is the best in the series because it really makes you feel like Batman. Arkham Asylum is the best Batman game because in it you are Batman and feel like it. Arkham Asylum is all about Batman being a Batman and the feeling of it. What's that? They're on to us? We're gonna have to actually give a real review? Well, if we have to.
1, 2, 3, okay. Okay.
A licensed property, an unknown team, a small budget. The result was magic. You know that chick from Smash Bros?
Samus!
Yes, that one.
Samus!
Yes, okay, yes, that one. Rocksteady took her game
Samus! Smash Brothers!
and uploaded it to their engine. Wow, that worked really well. Just what was the magic, you might ask? To that I would answer, why are you talking to your computer? Does it talk back? And also, the magic is the setting. Disgusting decrepit halls, creating an entrapped maze. The screams of lunatics echoing within their dungeon. One long night with a list of foes organized by a mad dog to defeat you. This game is as much about presentation and setting as gameplay or story. The Asylum breathes a life of insanity and gives a mood for the background of the game. The game dips into horror and always keeps a new player on his toes, with the dark and disturbing interpretation of its inmates. Like, listen to this one.
But the answer to all three is a baby. True, it crawls on all fours, but cut off its legs and it can only wiggle on 2 limbs. Give it a crutch, it can hobble around on 3, you see.
This guy needs help. The small budget and scope actually frees the developers with being able to tell a simple story with a clear gameplay focus. Brawling, sneaking, and searching is all you do in Arkham Asylum. But all of it is done well, with a heavy emphasis on story and atmosphere. The trinkets you collect inform you of the nature of the mission, to solve the mystery of Joker's activities. Solving riddles, looking for alternate paths, and piecing together the history of Arkham and the inmates creates a successful and focused gameplay loop based in the metroidvania genre. Although often too simplistic, the exploration in the game is emphasized. The game trusts you to find a way or look for a way to solve puzzles. The answer is usually a grate or a damaged wall easily seen, but at least the game pulls back often and tells you to just figure it out. However, more complex puzzles and exploration would help improve the gameplay. Some light platforming sections help vary out the game. The sheer number of Riddler trophies lying in hard to see places makes the riddles closer to I Spy than puzzles. But this actually isn't a bad thing, as it forces you to pay attention to the environment, searching through roughage and alternate pathways for the trophies. The UI even informs the player of the mood being set. A more down-to-earth, raw Batman embarks on a dark and dangerous comic book adventure. The coloration of the putrid greens and browns disgusts the player, and the dark shades put you on edge. And the sound effects are great in this game as well, with the sounds for picking up a trophy or looking through riddles on the menu, pushing you to find more, and the continual chirps of bats reminding you of your progress. Wait, do bats chirp? Captain Internet? They do! Yes! Yes! I always loved how often the characters' designs in the bio reflect the more comic book accurate designs of these characters, while the Arkham Asylum models reveal more practical and often more disturbing versions of the characters, almost to suggest the lore as being legends of these real-life figures, and this game being the actual story of what really happened. The building sections are claustrophobic labyrinths and shine as a way to keep you moving quickly, with lots of events happening and gameplay shifts, while also taking a lot of control away from you and occasionally letting you choose. The way these sections were designed were also an efficient use of dev resources, as these buildings, each individually with unique assets, are large and sprawling, with a few key moments to mix up the gameplay. Take the medical section. You find your way into the facility with your new gadget, and then encounter a stealth section. After this, the player is given a lot of freedom to save the staff in the order you want. Each doctor has their own, either standard or varying encounter. One doctor just has goons there to fight you, but they add a cutscene to somehow make it feel special, while another has a spectacle moment to show the player via his gadget, and the last has another laughing gas section that is used a few times in the game. You fight goons in between each doctor, with even a new enemy type being introduced here to change things up, and eventually once all are saved, have another stealth section. Can this stealth encounter again in the same room be qualified as padding? Perhaps, but at this point you haven't done stealth in a while, so you kinda wanna do another one. Then you hit the first Scarecrow section, which more or less have a lot of the same assets in each fight with him, but are still a joy to complete. After this you have a no-knockout stealth section and then defeat Bane. Now I will complain about Bane later, but there's no denying that Rocksteady knew how to maximize resources while keeping these sections fun. You feel like you're going deeper and deeper into somewhere you shouldn't be, which is then confirmed by walking into a real nightmare. You have a battle with Bane to finish off the medical center, and although decidedly this fight is less than epic, with its simplistic mechanics and lack of challenge, the story and mystery deepens as a reward for beating this dungeon, even in light of all the other Titan fights. It is still big thing after smaller things to cap off this area of the game. Rocksteady knew how to pace and design the mechanics with limited resources in mind is all I'm saying. You can say this is common sense for metroidvanias and small teams, which is true, but I thought I'd mention it. In attempting to embrace the detective nature of Batman, Rocksteady put in detective segments that are serviceable, but overall feel like playing bowling with the bumpers on. This game really makes you feel like you were in 2nd grade at your cousin's house in 2009 using a Bop It to play Mario Kart Wii. These sections were a good idea in theory, but are overused likely because of short development time, and never usually having consequences for choosing incorrectly. Who touches the wall this much? The main detective moment that stands out is figuring out the identity of the spirit of Arkham. Even though it's not hard to figure out, the game trusts you, so once you make the right choice, you feel a much higher sense of accomplishment. This doesn't happen much because they were probably afraid the player might get lost, which is against the game design of a Metroidvania. If they had more confidence in the player's detective and exploring skills, the game would have better captured the demanding nature of Metroidvanias. The combat is good, nailing down how easy it is for Batman to use his mastery of martial arts, with a weird rhythm that is easy to pick up, but slightly hard to flourish in. There isn't much combat variation in terms of choices, combos, and abilities that flow into the combat, something that could have been elaborated on more. But this problem is lessened here because the game is usually mixing up things with different spins on combat, like a Scarecrow sequence, or a weird environment to fight in, or it's switching between differing elements of the gameplay frequently enough to keep it fresh despite not having that much depth. Setting aside the gameplay mix-ups, which the game is intentionally making, there isn't much room for experimentation in combat, so it definitely makes the core combat, not taking into account the scenarios, more boring. One area I noticed upon replay is the very different approach to presentation of combat in Asylum to Arkham City. In Asylum, enemies are muscular tall goons, and punching them makes fairly realistic crunchy sounds. In Arkham City onward, enemies are smaller and less muscular, which makes sense especially to City's story with less food in the prison. And they have shirts now.
It's more dirty laundry for you and your goons!
The sound effects while fighting are more fantastic and otherworldly. Asylum makes Batman take up more of the screen, and the equal height of your opponent on top of the level design makes it feel more claustrophobic. Although I like both approaches, as they both speak to different aspects of the Batman power fantasy, on most days I would probably prefer Asylum, as it feels like Batman is going against equals, at least in the size and physique of their body, as well as the combat feeling closer to real life. The stealth sections shine as the best moments of the game. The goons with guns are challenging and force you to strategize and think before you do. The AI is somewhat weak in these sections, but the goons are given enough tools at their disposal for the engagements to be challenging, and often the sections are created in a strict fashion, such as no knockout enemy sections. The way the stealth sections are designed, as well as the tools of the enemies being upgraded throughout the game, helps fill in for that weak AI. Batman is not as overpowered in these sections, which results in the most back and forth in the game. It's fun because you can die quick, and it's the most fun in the game besides the Scarecrow sections. These Scarecrow sections are not only spooky, but have interesting presentations, which give a break from the fairly predictable design of the Asylum. The Scarecrow sections delight on a visual and storytelling level, and always leave you wanting more. The boss battles aside from Scarecrow need some help. Poison Ivy is probably the only good one, but on the other hand, these bosses aren't bad per se. They change up the gameplay and offer spectacle, but they aren't particularly good either. Crocs is decent while being very gimmicky, but it does keep you on your toes and break up the gameplay. These fights should have been a lot more fun and challenging, specifically Joker and Bane, some of the more disappointing fights. Joker's fight in particular is egregious as it's the last boss battle, and not only is it terribly easy, but you barely spend any of it fighting Joker, and instead fight his goons. And it also lacks narrative teeth. Does anyone else find it kind of reductive that this whole game is about Joker trying to defeat Batman mentally and physically in a madhouse and then planning to burn down Gotham, ending on Joker becoming a monster? Don't get me wrong, I was definitely hyped to get to fight a Hulk version of Joker, but it's not exactly a subtle ending to a game that perhaps needed a more quiet, reflective ending. The game definitely could have doubled down on its more moodier aspects, especially towards the end, and I think it would have helped the game a lot. Titan or not, you don't really get to fight the Joker one-on-one, which I thought was the whole point of this game in the end. Getting your hands on him and beating him for all he did during the game. Even Origins let you do that. Oh man, you got me referring to Origins in positive light, you know that's something. Joker's line about wanting Batman to see the world as he does kinda rings hollow, as the Joker confronts Batman in this game on more of a physical level. He's messing with Batman by causing chaos, throwing other villains at him, killing lots of innocents, and threatening people like Gordon, so he's obviously putting Batman under a lot of stress. But to think that this is the scenario Joker made up to defeat Batman on a morale level just seems misplaced. I know that this is the first game, so they probably didn't want to make it too dark, but it literally takes place in a scary asylum. Seems like Joker would have done something a little crazier at the end. Joker keeps letting Batman live and escape, presumably to build up to something bigger, and presumably that something bigger wasn't going to be a level 10 Titan with +5 strength. What exactly was he trying to show Batman? That in the end, anyone can be a monster if injected with monkey steroids. Very profound. And if the point is that Joker is going to destroy Gotham, then Joker really should have rubbed what he was going to do in Batman's face during the boss battle. If that was the angle, make Joker taunt Batman for his inflexible code that will cause the downfall of Gotham. Make it personal for Batman. I'm not even hating that you fight Joker with Titan, but maybe a one-on-one fight with normal Joker first, then a fight with the Titan version, as well as some more dark twisted scenarios at the end would have driven the setting as well as the Joker's point home a little more. I mean, look, Gordon is right here in an electric chair. How does he not have a health meter in this fight? I mean, come on, why are the stakes here so distant? It doesn't feel like the finale. The fight being easy also weakens the idea that Batman would use Titan to beat Joker. Like, dude, you're easier than the other 2 Titans I fought downstairs. Of course I'm not gonna go Titan. This all just feels kinda rushed, honestly. And again, I only mention the subtext of the story because the game does. If the game treated it, oh, it was that one time the Joker took over the asylum to make some monsters, it'd be fine. But the game definitely indicates that this is some sort of significant moment in Batman and Joker's relationship. But I mean, you know, at least you get to defeat the Joker at the end of this journey, making the game have a solid, obtainable goal all throughout. And the whole gel on the fist moment, that was pretty cool. And then, you know, Batman's refusal to stoop to Joker's level to defeat him, okay. I see you. That was kinda cool. The reused Titan mini-boss can be a bit annoying, but honestly it's entertaining enough to ride on a Titan and make him beat up his friend. So though overused, a new mechanic of the fight in riding on their back becomes usable later, so it's forgivable in a way. But Bane's fight is the exact same, which is unforgivable. Bane should have had a much better and more unique fight. The story is a fairly simple mystery for Batman to solve, while revealing new villains along the way. The Joker's dialogue is the key standout of the game, and his toying with Batman is the core of the story, making otherwise standard story tropes more interesting. The key gameplay thrust of the game is the losing of control of the island, Joker taking over it, and the build-up to the confrontation with the Joker. The environmental storytelling and gameplay truly informs that the insane are taking over the asylum with the deaths of the guards, the breaching of the armory, the releasing of the lunatics, and the destruction of the island through Poison Ivy's use of Titan. It really feels like the island is becoming unhinged, which fuels your journey forward and mission to stop the Joker. Having such an easily understood task is great for a game like this. Not too dissimilar to Metroid's focus on finding Ridley in the past, because your accomplishments growing as a player is paramount in Metroidvania, so the story keeps the player's eyes on the ball. The story is engaging and not immediately clear what is happening, with frequent info updates. It's so funny because it's like, oh look, this random doctor over here that you saved is actually the key to this. It's kinda, you didn't see that coming on the first playthrough. It's kinda neat. And when first playing the game, the reveal of the villains is such a rush. Keeps the player guessing who is going to show up next. This is one major area where the game does feel like it is somewhat lacking. The game really feels like it should have at least one more major villain. This is because Zsasz really isn't in the game much and really doesn't have a section. Bane is shafted pretty hard too, with a low IQ Batman and Robin style interpretation. He's only in the game for one subpar boss fight reused on all the mini-bosses. And while yes, Killer Croc only has a boss fight too, he has a much better interpretation and a much more interesting encounter. So the villains that have sections or boss fights that are substantial are Joker, Harley, Scarecrow, Ivy, and Killer Croc. A more dedicated section to another villain like Freeze or Two-Face would have went a long way in varying the encounters. It would have been nice to see a truly insane patient like Zsasz, Professor Pig, or Calendar Man have a section where you have to stop one of them from killing people. Not dissimilar to Joker or Harley Quinn dangling hostages, but with a darker edge. Sometimes the game does seem to be censored, and actually was censored to get the T rating. So it does make me wonder how this restricted how the developers looked at the scenarios. Like, dang dude, I didn't know all this black goo came out of people when they got killed. That's pretty messed up. This T rating isn't a totally bad thing, however, as it made the developers think outside the box to add tension in ways you wouldn't normally expect. The game never goes too far into horror, but that T rating limitation leaves much to the imagination while the game confirms many gruesome details that satiates the dark fantasies in your mind. The Metroidvania aspects of the game are very enjoyable too, with the island unfolding itself throughout the adventure with new fun upgrades and gameplay opportunities. It's no Super Metroid in terms of the freedom, but it balances player agency with heavy story successfully, in a way that most story-based games fail to. Because the gameplay values freedom and reflects not only the goals of Batman, but you as well. You are deciphering this island and destroying the Joker's plot. It appeals to the power fantasy while still having a cohesive story that's good, which most games usually choose either or. This positive can't be understated because many heavy story games mess up this balance. Many games are far too interested in giving the best generic anime and or TV show and or movie writing money can buy than being, a video game. In most types of games, the player's agency, gameplay, and push towards a goal should be paramount to anything. When putting in a heavy narrative, this can sometimes create some ludonarrative dissonance or a compromise on gameplay. Thankfully, Asylum is actually usually really good at aligning your goals and the player character's goals. But there are a few areas where it misses, even if only by a teensy hair. If there was some way to find upgrades, pieces of equipment, or health drops in the world, then this would have incentivized more exploration and would have automatically made Rocksteady design their game with more freedom in mind. Collecting trophies or interview tapes indirectly makes you more powerful by giving you more XP to level up, but no upgrade pickups on the map outside the main quest that affect gameplay loses that tangible chunk-based benefit of exploring. Things like the sonic batarang could have been found by collecting certain things around the map, rather than only purchasing it as an upgrade. It is a missed opportunity, but they probably just wanted to add more emphasis on leveling up and not keep important items from the player. In this story-focused game, story-based rewards like tapes or character files replace upgrades that follow exploration, which are traditional to a metroidvania, which makes some sense from a distance. Of course, a story-based metroidvania should encourage exploration to further the story and the gameplay. The thing is, I like the story-based rewards because I like the story being revealed, but from a gameplay-focused perspective, in a metroidvania, this is a negative, because Rocksteady could have simply done both. However, it can't be overlooked how effective the collectibles are. The interview tapes are the best writing in the game, with great performances. Finding Easter eggs to other villains, the story of Arkham, and collecting Riddler trophies to hear the Riddler's taunts turn to whining are effective ways of making the player observant and searching every nook and cranny. Another example of story-breaking gameplay is these walkie-talkie sections. I don't mind them too much because I like the drip of story, but it's kinda annoying when you want a faster run of the game. It's the little details in this game that make it pop. A guard's controlling the island until Joker snaps his trap. The optional visitor center that is based around the most recent story events. The death endings for villains. The party at the end. The destruction of Batman's suit over time. The constant announcements from Joker. The knowledge that Mr. Freeze is just on the other side of this door. All of these details make Arkham Asylum more than the sum of its pieces. Arkham Asylum is not the best at anything, at fighting, at stealth, at being a detective game, or at Metroidvania exploration, but it's the synthesis of all of these as well as how it's packaged that makes it fun to play and to experience the story. It's a good game and the best in the series because of its focused design, fun gameplay loop, that's paced well, and its spooky mood. I give this game, 3 Gerald Fords out of 79.